God's chosen ones. Beloved chosen one, listen closely. This is not an ordinary moment. This is not a fleeting thought or a passing video. This right now is your divine summons. May 31 isn't just a date on the calendar. It's been circled in the spirit realm, marked in heaven, engraved into the very pages of your destiny. You are not scrolling by chance. You didn't stumble here. Heaven has pressed pause on your distractions, so this message could be delivered directly into your spirit. You were born for this day. There are days that pass and change nothing. Then there are days that change everything. May 31 is that day for you. For years, you've been under construction. For months, you've been sensing something stirring. For weeks, the weight of what you couldn't see has pressed on your chest like invisible warfare. You couldn't name it, but it was real. The pressure, the silence, the divine restlessness. And now, the moment has arrived. The divine convergence has begun. You are not like the rest. You never have been. That's why the road has been lonelier. That's why the attacks have been heavier. That's why you've been misunderstood, pushed out, whispered about. Not because you were cursed, but because you are chosen, marked, assigned, destined. You are heaven's secret weapon. You've been hidden not because you're forgotten, but because the world wasn't ready. Until now. The heavens are sounding the alarm. May 31 is more than a warning. It's a gate. It is a spiritual intersection where decisions made will echo for decades. You've cried for clarity. You've begged for signs. You've asked for breakthrough. And now, God answers not with a whisper, but with a trumpet. This is your trumpet. This is your scroll being unsealed. You were born for this day. There's something divine about your design. You've always sensed it. Even when you tried to blend in, you never could. Even when you silenced your light to comfort others' darkness, it never stayed dim for long. You carry something eternal, something explosive, and it terrifies the enemy. That's why you've been fought in places you never expected. The battle isn't about who you are, it's about who you're about to become. You're not just a survivor, you're a torchbearer. You've endured what others couldn't, so you could carry what others won't. You've passed tests in silence that would have crushed lesser vessels. Don't you see it? The pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to prepare you. You were forged in fire for such a time as this. May 31 is the divine go moment. All of heaven is watching. God's eyes are fixed on you. This isn't a trial run. This isn't a simulation. This is the day destiny meets decision. There's no more room for lukewarm. No more hiding. No more hesitation. You were never called to be neutral. You were called to be anointed. Chosen one. The clock of eternity is striking. God is not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be willing. He's not demanding flawless obedience. He's waiting for surrendered hearts. What you decide today will open doors no man can shut. What you release today will shatter cycles that have lasted for generations. What you align with today will echo into eternity. Don't you dare minimize this moment. Don't explain it away as emotion. Don't call it coincidence. This is divine confrontation. This is spiritual clarity. The veil is lifting. The warfare was because of this. The delay was because of this. The dreams, the signals, the unshakable urgency inside your spirit, they all led here, to this holy instruction. Awaken now, move now, obey now. I don't know what you've been carrying, but I know it's heavy. I don't know the exact demons you've been fighting, but I know they've been persistent. You've been attacked in your sleep. You've been exhausted by the day. You've cried with no words to explain the pain. But God saw every tear. Heaven documented every moment. And now comes divine compensation. Now comes the unveiling of the chosen. There's a crown hovering over your life. And May 31 is the moment you reach for it. But hear this. Crowns don't land on heads that are bowed to fear. Crowns don't rest on minds that doubt their worth. You must step up. You must open your mouth. You must claim what is yours. This is the moment to declare, I hear you. Lord, I receive my calling. I choose my crown. You've spent enough time second-guessing what God already confirmed. No more spiritual amnesia. No more running in circles. You are not lost. You are led. Chosen one. Type 777 in the comments as a prophetic act of completion, alignment, and divine confirmation. This is not superstition. It is synchronization with heaven. When you type it, you're declaring, I'm in alignment with God's perfect will for May 31. You are signaling to darkness that you are awake, alert, and armed. And if you haven't already, subscribe now. Not to boost a number, but to stay connected to the stream of prophetic clarity that's flowing in this hour. This isn't a one-time moment. This is the beginning of a movement. The chosen ones are rising and you are among them. Subscribe. Comment. 777. And share this with someone else who needs to hear it. Someone else who feels the tug but needs the trumpet. May 31 isn't just a new month. It's a new mantle. Divine interruption is never polite. It does not wait for your convenience. It does not knock softly or whisper in waiting rooms. It storms in unannounced, because heaven does not need permission to rescue the called. Right now, everything that seems paused, delayed, off schedule in your life is not the result of bad timing. It is a result of divine interference. God has reached into your timeline and held everything still so that nothing could progress without this moment being received. What you've called delay is divine preservation. What you've labeled confusion is actually sacred realignment. You've been frustrated, haven't you? Wondering why things haven't moved, why doors slammed, why opportunities seem to vanish just when they were within reach. But the truth is this: heaven interrupted it. Because if you had walked through those doors without this awareness, you would have entered with the wrong version of yourself. The unfinished version, the distracted, diluted version. But God wants the anointed version stepping through, the version of you that knows exactly who you are. There is no such thing as coincidence for the chosen ones. Your life is not a random arrangement of people, places, and pain. Every encounter, every closed door, every abrupt ending was orchestrated with eternal precision. That moment, you lost what you thought you needed. Divine interruption. That connection you thought would last, but ended without closure. Divine interruption. That dream that still hasn't manifested after years of prayer. Divine. Delay, not denial. This interruption is not God punishing you. It's God protecting you, because He knows what you carry. He knows what's inside you, and He will not allow you to walk into your next with unresolved pieces that could sabotage your future. This interruption is sacred. It's surgical. It's heaven stepping in to stop what you were about to settle for. Look around you. Doesn't it feel like everything has slowed down? Conversations have dried up. People have gone silent. Doors that used to fly open Now resist. This is not failure, it's focus. God is narrowing your path, removing the excess noise, stripping away every voice that competes with his path. It feels like loss, but it's actually alignment. When God interrupts, it's never to subtract. It's to subtract, so he can multiply. You're not being punished, you're being purified. There's a sacred stillness in your life right now, and it's not an accident. It's a holding pattern from heaven, like an aircraft circling, waiting for the right moment to land safely. God has placed you in a divine orbit. You've been circling over destiny, circling over breakthrough, and now the instruction is coming for descent. But you had to be paused to receive it. You had to be still to hear it. This is the hour when divine interruption has reached its climax. It's not subtle anymore. It's pressing on your sleep. It's stirring in your spirit at 3 a.m. It's breaking patterns that you never had the strength to break on your own. Relationships are crumbling, not because you're broken, but because God is building something unshakable. Plans are being restructured, not because you failed, but because God is perfecting your path. This is what it means to be set apart. You don't move when others move. You don't build when others build. You move on divine instruction, not impulse. And the reason it feels lonely, because very few are walking this path. You are not being delayed, you are being deployed. And heaven won't release you until you are fully aware of who sent you, why you're going, and what mantle you carry. Sometimes God will pause your life to restart your identity. He'll interrupt everything that's external so he can reset what's internal. That's what this moment is. A divine reset. A complete redefinition of how you see yourself. No more underestimating what's in you. No more shrinking to make others comfortable. No more apologizing for the power you carry. This is the moment you stop seeing yourself as a bystander and step into the realization that you are a divine disruptor. There's been a war for your identity because your identity is dangerous. Hell has fought hardest in the places of your self-worth, your value, your sense of direction, because once you realize who you are, you cannot be manipulated, misled, or mistaken. That's why the divine interruption came. To silence the lies, to end the performance, to tear down the version of you that others accepted, so the version of you that God designed could finally rise. This moment, this divine pause, is an altar. You are standing on sacred ground. Even if everything around you looks common, the environment doesn't need to look holy for it to be holy. Wherever heaven decides to meet you becomes sacred, whether it's a parking lot, a lonely bedroom, or the middle of your scrolling feed. Right now, this message is your burning bush, your Damascus road, your divine interruption. Don't confuse quiet with absence. God has not been silent. He's been speaking in stillness, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, not in the thunder, but in the whisper. And that whisper has carried weight. It has carried your next. It has carried your identity. It has carried the strategy for what you're being called to birth. But you had to be still to hear it. You had to be interrupted to receive it. You may have called it a breakdown, but it was really a breakthrough in disguise. You may have thought it was loss, but it was really God pruning everything that couldn't go with you. You may have been angry with God for interrupting your plans, but now you see He was rescuing your purpose. Let this truth settle in your spirit. God doesn't interrupt unless He's about to introduce something new. Every divine interruption precedes a divine instruction, and every divine instruction leads to divine release. What's next won't be built on your hustle, it will be built on your hearing. your obedience, your surrender. You've been asking for change, but change requires interruption. Real transformation never comes comfortably. It comes when God steps in, shakes the foundation, and rebuilds on truth. That's what May 31 represents, not another date, but the day heaven declared enough is enough. No more delay, no more pretending, no more surviving. Now begins the rising. Now begins the reign of the ones who were chosen from the womb, called before time, and interrupted by grace. You've carried the weight of this world in silence. Every step forward felt like dragging chains no one else could see. You showed up with a smile, but inside was a storm. You encouraged others while your own soul was gasping for breath. You fought battles alone, not because you wanted isolation, but because no one around you could comprehend the intensity of your calling. And yet, you endured, not because you're strong, but because you are chosen, God's chosen one. The weight you've carried wasn't random. The burdens weren't a mistake. Heaven did not overlook you. It was preparing you. Every sleepless night, every tear no one saw, every moment you questioned your existence, it was counted. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. God saw you weeping and whispered, "I'm not finished. Hold on." This isn't just spiritual encouragement, it's spiritual revelation. There's a reason you've felt heavy for no clear reason. A reason you've struggled to connect with others. A reason you've carried invisible warfare even when everything seemed fine. It's not emotional instability. It's not overthinking. It's spiritual weight. You were born with a mantle on your life, and that mantle comes with pressure, with pain, and with power. You've been misunderstood because people can't recognize what they can't carry. They mocked your standards. They called you too much. They distanced themselves because your light exposed their shadows. But this is your confirmation. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand apart. You were meant to interrupt generational cycles, to shift atmospheres, to uproot curses, to be a forerunner. Do you know what kind of vessel heaven selects for these assignments? Not the flashy, not the perfect, not the always put together. Heaven selects the willing, the broken but obedient, the ones who've been through hell but refuse to let it rewrite their identity. That's you. God looked at your life, at your scars, your stumbles, your story, and still said, "This one is mine." The enemy's greatest strategy has always been identity confusion. If he can keep you questioning your worth, doubting your voice, hiding your light, then you become harmless. But once you recognize the weight you carry, once you realize that what you've endured didn't break you, it built you, you become unstoppable. You become dangerous to darkness. Let's call it what it is. You've been in a silent war, not against people, but against principalities. Every time you almost stepped out in purpose, you felt a pullback. Every time you got close to clarity, confusion flooded in. And every time you decided, "This is the year I rise," another storm came. That's not coincidence, it's confirmation. You've been fought hardest in the area of your promise. That's how you know what you're carrying is sacred. The warfare revealed the weight. The attacks revealed the assignment. And yet, through it all, you never broke. You bent. You wept. You paused. But you did not break. That's how we know you're chosen. Chosen one. You've been misunderstood for a reason. Heaven hid you, so hell couldn't hijack you. God allowed the loneliness to purify your motives. He allowed the silence so you'd learn to hear his whisper. He allowed the delays to strip away your dependency on applause. Because what you're about to carry, what you're about to birth, requires undiluted focus. Heaven couldn't risk it falling into contaminated hands. And now, the weight lifts. Not because the war is over, but because your awareness is rising. You're no longer just enduring, you're embodying. You are beginning to understand the why. This is not just about survival. This is about stepping fully into the mantle you were born to wear. It's about finally seeing what the enemy saw before you ever did. Your life is a threat. This is your inner awakening. That quiet, holy moment where the noise fades and the truth shouts. You are the answer to someone else's bondage. Your breakthrough will ripple through bloodlines. Your healing will shake systems. Your yes will break chains that have lasted for generations. And that's why the weight has felt generational, because the assignment is generational. You've asked, why me? But heaven responds, why not you? Who else but the one who's endured what you've endured? Who else but the one who didn't quit when quitting was easier? Who else but the one who didn't compromise their character when compromise would have been comfortable? Who else but you? Every ounce of pain has purpose. Every lonely night was a classroom. Every delay was a test. You were never just surviving, you were being trained. And now, the moment has come. You're not the same person who entered the wilderness. You've changed. You've been refined. You've been anointed in the shadows. Don't you dare wish away your past. Don't you curse your former seasons. Everything you've walked through was heaven's curriculum. And now that you've passed the test, the mantle rests heavier. The voice is louder. The vision is clearer. You're not waiting on a move of God. You are the move of God. You've cried out for confirmation. This is it. You've begged for clarity. This is it. You've whispered, God, if I'm still in your will, speak. This is it. That weight, that pressure, that calling, it's not an accident. It's not your imagination. It's not emotion. It's the mantle. It's the reason you were born. And the moment you accept it, everything changes. So now I tell you, not as a voice from a screen, but as a divine interruption to your routine, the weight wasn't punishment. It was prophecy in progress. You've been carrying destiny on your back, and heaven is proud. You didn't die in the wilderness. You didn't curse the silence. You held on. And now, your reward isn't just relief, it's revelation. Say it out loud if you must. Say it to yourself in the mirror. Say it in your journal. Say it under your breath. But say it from your soul. I am chosen. Write it. Speak it. Believe it. Comment it below. I am chosen. Let hell hear you. Let heaven witness it. Let your own mind be reminded. No more doubt. No more dimming. No more delay. You are the chosen one. The enemy saw it before you did. Long before you realized you were different. Hell had already marked you as a threat. It didn't wait for you to step into your calling. It began the attacks when you were still innocent, still discovering who you were. That's why the trauma started so early. That's why the rejection came when you were most vulnerable. The war against your life didn't begin when you found God. It began when hell recognized your potential. Before you ever spoke a sermon, before you ever prayed with power, before you ever understood the word anointing, you were already under surveillance. The enemy studied your lineage. He saw what was placed inside of you. He knew you were a break in the bloodline, a rupture in the pattern, and he moved quickly to confuse you, break you, silence you. But it didn't work. You're still here. And that alone is a sign that purpose is louder than pain. There are moments in life when the warfare doesn't make sense until it does. Looking back, you can now see how the intensity of the opposition matched the magnitude of the assignment. The heavier the attack, the higher the calling. You weren't just randomly targeted. You were strategically pursued. Because your life has always carried evidence of heaven, even when you didn't recognize it, even when you were lost in cycles, even when you were buried in compromise, the enemy still saw it. That glow, that glory, that undeniable pull toward righteousness. It explains why certain doors slammed shut without warning, why betrayal came from those closest, why opportunities vanished at the last minute. You were being watched, not by man, but by spirits. And because your life carried something eternal, the attacks came to abort the mission before it could begin. But grace stepped in. Mercy intervened. What should have destroyed you, trained you? What should have crushed you, positioned you? You've walked through things others didn't survive. You've overcome circumstances that didn't make headlines but shook your soul. And yet, you kept moving. Not because you always felt strong, but because you were sustained by something deeper, something not of this world, something eternal. That's the mark of the chosen. You were built with spiritual reinforcement. You don't collapse. You transform. The enemy tried to wear you down. He tried to exhaust your spirit with relentless pressure. Financial attacks, health scares, emotional breakdowns, spiritual droughts. He tried to bury you in the chaos of life. But with every hit, you grew more aware, more discerning, more dangerous. Because every attack became a teacher. Every heartbreak birthed insight. Every trial strengthened your resolve. The spiritual surveillance wasn't just about stopping you. It was about distracting you. If the enemy couldn't kill you, he wanted to consume your focus. He wanted you obsessed with proving yourself, chasing validation, comparing your journey, questioning your worth. Because as long as your eyes were on man, they weren't on God. And as long as your hands were busy trying to fit in, they couldn't be lifted to receive instruction. But now the veil is lifting. You see it clearly. The warfare wasn't random. The pattern is undeniable. Every setback was a setup for revelation. Every delay revealed what needed healing. Every silent season exposed what needed surrender. Nothing was wasted. Even your mistakes have been repurposed. The scars you hide are now proof that you've encountered the fire and walked out forged. It's terrifying to darkness when someone survives what should have silenced them. It's disturbing to the enemy when someone finds clarity in the middle of chaos. That's why you've been targeted. Because you didn't just survive, you discerned. You didn't just endure, you evolved. You didn't just get back up, you came back different. There's a spiritual intelligence inside you now, a depth that can't be taught in books, a knowing that only comes from fire. You've learned how to hear beyond noise. You've learned how to move when God says move, even when no one else understands. You've learned how to release what others would have clung to. And that learning came through pain, through pressure, through surveillance. Hell's biggest mistake was not realizing that watching you closely would only prove your resilience. The more the enemy studied you, the more heaven poured into you. The more darkness pressed in, the more your spirit rose in resistance. And now you walk differently, not with arrogance, but with authority. Not with pride, but with presence. You carry the weight of survival, but also the fragrance of purpose. You didn't get here by chance. You didn't stumble into strength. It was forged in loneliness, in confusion, in unanswered prayers. But now, you are no longer guessing. You're no longer waiting for permission. You're walking in certainty, and that certainty is disruptive. It commands attention in the spirit realm. It announces to principalities, this one has awakened. The ones who make it through are the ones who were always meant to lead, not because they have all the answers, but because they refuse to quit. They don't walk in perfection, they walk in conviction. That's you. You've wrestled with your past. You've questioned your worth. You've doubted your strength. But none of that disqualified you. In fact, it's what qualified you. You know how to fight. You know how to pray. You know how to endure when there's no applause. That's who the enemy fears. Not the ones who shout loudest, but the ones who still show up. The ones who bleed and bless, who break and build, who cry and continue. You are not weak because you've struggled. You are strong because you've survived. And not just survived, you've grown in secret places. So let the enemy watch. Let darkness continue its surveillance. You've nothing to hide. You are walking evidence. You are the fulfillment of prophecy. You are proof that no weapon formed against you has prospered. You are the sign that grace works, that mercy endures, that purpose prevails. The surveillance didn't stop you. It sharpened you. And now, you move with power, quiet, focused, anointed. You've seen too much to ever doubt again. And because of that, your very existence terrifies the darkness. You are a threat, not because of your platform, your following, or your fame, but because of your presence. The weight you carry in the spirit disrupts atmospheres. Your words shift rooms, even when spoken softly. You don't need to announce your calling. Darkness already knows it. Every time you walk into a place, spiritual authority enters with you. You are God's strategy hidden in plain sight. You are not ordinary. That's why your warfare isn't either. The pressure you faced isn't because you're weak. It's because you're carrying something heavy, something eternal, something that heaven intends to release through you. You've wondered why it's been so intense lately, why the resistance seems to rise even when you're not doing anything wrong. It's because even your stillness is a problem for darkness. Even your rest is warfare. Because when a chosen one learns to rest in God, they become more dangerous than when they strive. You may have felt forgotten, but the truth is, you were hidden. God didn't ignore you, He reserved you, because what's on your life can't be diluted. It can't be rushed. It must be revealed in the right moment. And that moment is now. You are not coming into purpose, you're stepping into what was already waiting for your obedience. Your presence threatens cycles. Your light exposes what's been tolerated for generations. That's why people either gravitate toward you or resist you without knowing why. It's not personal. It's spiritual. The anointing on your life irritates what's been hiding in comfort zones. You weren't designed to blend in. You were called to upend. You weren't built for safe spaces. You were formed in the fire so you could walk into places others flee from. Chosen one. Your presence is warfare. Your voice carries authority. You aren't loud by volume, you're loud by vibration. You carry a frequency that heaven recognizes and hell dreads. And that's why you've been tried the way you have. The attacks on your mind, the exhaustion in your body, the frustration in your spirit, it's all confirmation of your impact. You don't need validation anymore. You've outgrown the need to be understood. You know what you carry. And more importantly, God knows. That's what matters. You're not doing this for claps. You're doing it for kingdom consequence. You're not chasing followers. You're pursuing obedience. You're not showing up for attention. You're showing up because you were sent. When you speak, there is shift. When you move, there is movement. Your very decision to stay faithful becomes a divine declaration. I will not bow. I will not break. I will not be silent. You've been silenced long enough. But now, your voice returns. Your sound is needed. Your story is sacred. And your obedience is a weapon. Some of the greatest warfare you've experienced wasn't because you were doing something wrong, but because you were close to breakthrough. The enemy always intensifies the resistance before the release. That's why you almost gave up. That's why everything felt unbearable. Because you were closer than you knew, but you didn't quit. And that's why you're still dangerous. The kingdom of darkness counted on your silence. It expected you to self-destruct. It wagered everything on your collapse. But you stood up, not in your own strength, but in God's. And now you carry something that's not just for you. It's for nations, for generations, for everything connected to your yes. This is not about you being impressive. It's about God being undeniable through you. That's why your life had to be cleansed of every distraction, every idol, every false attachment, because God intends to pour through you. You are a vessel, an atmosphere shifter, a revival spark. You don't take up space, you create it. You don't fill a room, you define it. Your obedience is costly because your assignment is weighty. The stakes are high because the reward is holy. You're not being asked to carry light things. You're being trusted with eternal ones. That's why the crushing has been so severe. But crushing is always followed by pouring. And the oil that is coming from your life will not be common. It will heal. It will restore. It will destroy yokes and loose captives. If you've ever doubted your significance, look at your resistance. If you've ever wondered if your life mattered, measure the magnitude of the warfare. Hell doesn't waste its time on the irrelevant. It pursues the potent. And you, chosen one, are potent. Your life is not background noise. It is a divine announcement. So now, walk boldly. Speak courageously. Move deliberately. The mantle is no longer hovering, it's resting. The oil is no longer in hiding, it's flowing. You've survived too much to settle now. You've seen too much to stay silent now. You've felt too deeply to pretend now. Your time is not coming, it is now. Your influence is not future tense, it's present. And the world won't know what hit it when you fully awaken to the power inside you. If this message ignited something in your spirit, share it. There is someone else who has been wrestling in silence, waiting for this exact confirmation. Don't underestimate the power of obedience. One share could shift a life. Like it if your spirit resonates. Let it mark a moment. Subscribe to stay locked into this prophetic stream. What's being released isn't momentary, it's momentum. And you are part of it. Heaven is holding its breath. The angels are watching. The cloud of witnesses leans forward in anticipation. All of creation is groaning, not because of chaos, but because it senses a shift. Something sacred is about to unfold. And you, chosen one, are standing at the very edge of it. This is not just a season, it's a spiritual threshold, a crossing point. And what's on the other side isn't just another chapter of life. It's a new dimension of assignment. You're not transitioning from one phase to another. You're transitioning from preparation to manifestation, from being processed to being positioned. Everything you've walked through has led you here. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every dream that wouldn't die, every moment of clarity that broke through confusion, it's all converging into this. Heaven has not been silent in this hour. It has simply been strategic. The quietness in your surroundings was never about abandonment, it was about precision. God has been aligning things with surgical intent, delaying what needed more time, protecting what would have contaminated you, closing off what seemed good, so he could release what is God. And now, you are standing in the echo of that divine preparation. There is a reason you've felt the intensity rise lately. There is a reason your spirit has been unusually alert. Why everything ordinary feels uncomfortable. Why conversations seem heavier. Why time feels like it's accelerating. It's not anxiety, it's awakening. Your spirit recognizes that something holy is unfolding. Something final. Something now. You are not late. You are right on time. The decision ahead is not small. It's not casual. It is spiritual. Eternal. It is about what you were born to do, not just what you want, but what you were made for. You were not placed on this earth to wander. You were planted to build, and what you build from this moment forward will not be temporary, it will be eternal. There are divine moments that split a life in two, the time before and the time after. This is one of them. May 31 is not just a date, it's a divine landmark, a spiritual intersection, a place where decisions become destiny. And heaven will not force you to move, but it will call you with everything it has. That call is what you've been hearing in your spirit, even when you couldn't explain it. This isn't emotional hype. This isn't religious rhetoric. This is spiritual reality. The ones who are sensitive enough will feel it. The ones who are chosen will know it. There is no going back from what is being revealed. Once your spirit recognizes the timing of God, neutrality becomes disobedience. Delayed obedience becomes rebellion, and indecision becomes forfeiture. That's why the tension is so great. That's why your dreams have intensified, why your discernment has deepened, why familiar things now feel foreign. You are crossing out of a dimension that no longer fits. You are being pulled by eternity into a space you've never been, but one that has always been waiting for you. Do not fear the unfamiliar. What feels new to you has always been known by God. What feels risky to you is already secure in His design. He's not asking you to leap blindly. He's asking you to follow what He already mapped. Your role is not to make it work, it's to move when He says move. And He is speaking loudly, clearly, urgently. There is no more room for hesitation, no more space for indecision. This is the part of your story where courage becomes your language, where trust becomes your posture, where faith isn't just preached, it is lived. You are being summoned by heaven to step across the line. And the line isn't about location, it's about identity, about alignment, about destiny. This is not about waiting for the right time. This is the time. This is not about needing another sign. You've been given more than enough. The dreams, the confirmations, the restlessness, it's all been pointing here. It's been building a prophetic momentum that cannot be denied. You were not created to stand at the edge forever. You were made to cross. And once you do, everything shifts. Not because your circumstances will instantly change, but because you will. You'll no longer move from fear. You'll move from assignment. You'll no longer speak from wounds. You'll speak from wisdom. You'll no longer wait for doors to open. You'll realize you are the key. There is a cost to this obedience. There always is. Obédience demande se rendre. It requires you to lay down what makes sense in order to take up what is sacred. It asks you to say no to what is comfortable, so you can say yes to what is consecrated. But the reward is not ease, it's impact, legacy, fulfillment that runs deeper than success or applause. You've tried to walk this path in pieces, giving God part of your yes, holding back the rest for fear of what it might cost. But this moment requires a full surrender, a yes that doesn't just come from your mouth, but from your movement, a yes that is visible in how you live, what you pursue, what you release, and who you become. There's no halfway here, no room for partial alignment. The door that is opening is sized for obedience, not opinion, not preference, not delay. You either step through or you stay behind. And heaven will not beg. It will call, but it will not plead. Because what's being released is holy, and it can only rest on those who are ready to carry it. So let the tension rise. Let the pressure speak. It's not there to crush you, it's there to confirm you. You are in the birthing room of destiny. And the contractions you feel are not chaos, they are divine contractions, signs that something is ready to be born, and it cannot wait another season. Heaven holds its breath, waiting to see if you will move. Angels are stationed, instructions are written, oil is ready, and all of it is waiting on one thing: your response. Because in the kingdom, breakthrough doesn't start with miracles, it starts with obedience. You've delayed long enough. You've hesitated, paused it, questioned, replayed every prophecy in your mind, and waited for a sign. But here's the truth. You already feel deep in your bones. The waiting is over. This is not a time to second-guess what heaven has already confirmed. This is the final warning before the window shifts, the last call before the gate closes, the final moment before hesitation becomes disobedience. There's something sacred about divine timing. It doesn't wait for your convenience. It responds to your obedience. When God opens a window, it's not meant for observation, it's meant for action. You've asked for clarity. You've begged for direction, and now it's here. Not wrapped in comfort, not covered in ease, but raw, unfiltered, and heavy with purpose. Don't miss it. What you're being offered isn't casual. This isn't about a better mood or a feel-good moment. This is about legacy, eternal consequence, divine positioning. You've been praying prayers that require angelic movement, asking for breakthrough that rearranges bloodlines. But now that it's here, fear creeps in, whispering, "Are you sure?" Fear always shows up when destiny knocks. Because fear knows if you ever say yes, hell loses its grip. You cannot afford to delay this time. Delays are dangerous for the chosen. When others procrastinate, they risk inconvenience. When you procrastinate, you risk purpose. There are people tied to your obedience. There are nations connected to your decision. There are souls who will never see the light unless you carry yours boldly. This is the hour where the weight of hesitation is heavier than the risk of obedience. It's time to move. Time to sever the old cycles. Time to break agreement with comfort. You've been orbiting the same fears, revisiting the same wounds, circling the same mountains. But heaven is declaring, you've circled this mountain long enough. Now turn north. That word isn't symbolic. It's prophetic. It's directional. You're being called out of rotation and into elevation. What would happen if you stopped treating your calling like an option? What would shift if you started treating your purpose like a mandate? The world doesn't need another passive soul scrolling past conviction. The world is groaning for the rising of the real ones, the surrendered ones, the chosen ones who don't flinch in the face of fire. Chosen one, hear this clearly. Your destiny is not optional. God didn't anoint you for convenience. He anointed you for consequence, for confrontation, for collision with darkness. You don't get to pick whether you're chosen. You get to choose whether you will carry it. And if you don't, He won't leave you, but He will raise another, because His plan will still be fulfilled, with you, or through someone else. This isn't to threaten you. This is to awaken you. You've been in the preparation stage long enough. You've had the dreams, the confirmations, the countless warnings. You've been given vision after vision. And now it's time to stop dreaming and start building. Heaven is not going to keep repeating itself. At some point, the instruction must be followed. At some point, the calling must be embraced. At some point, your actions must reflect the oil that rests on your life. You are standing on a holy edge. One step forward changes everything. But standing still will cost you more than movement ever will. If you think obedience is costly, wait until you measure the price of disobedience. Not just in what you lose, but in what never comes to life because of it. You've told yourself you're not ready. But God never called the ready. He called the willing. You've looked for perfect conditions, but God operates in impossible ones. You've waited for understanding, but obedience doesn't start with comprehension. It starts with surrender. You don't need the whole picture to take the first step. You just need to believe that if God spoke it, He will sustain it. Let this settle into your spirit. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. Every time you stall, spiritual opportunities shift. Every time you pause, the momentum slows. And while grace covers your mistakes, purpose demands movement. You've been fed long enough. It's time to feed others. You've received long enough. It's time to pour. You've healed enough. It's time to lead. The hour is urgent. The atmosphere is ripe. The old systems are crumbling. And while many wait for signs in the sky, you've already been given what you need. This moment, this word, this inner pull that won't let you go. It's not just conviction, it's divine instruction. And it cannot be ignored any longer. So what will you do? Will you let another sacred window pass because of fear? Or will you rise, trembling but obedient, into the place God prepared for you? This is the moment. You don't need another prophecy. You don't need another word. You need to respond. Comment 999 below if you feel this in your spirit. That number isn't random, it's prophetic. It represents the end of delay, the death of fear, and the birth of divine alignment. When you type it, you're not just agreeing with a message, you're making a declaration to heaven and a warning to hell. I will not delay any longer. I choose to obey. Let the earth shake with obedience. Let angels be dispatched by your response. Let hell tremble at the rising of the ones who finally said yes. You're not alone in this. You're not abandoned in this. You are backed by all of heaven. And all it takes is one decision to shift your destiny. This is not just about you. It's about the legacy that follows, the future that unfolds, the chains that break, the lives that shift. The story that begins here, now, with you. Not in theory, not in the future, but in this moment of divine intersection. May 31 is not waiting for your emotions to catch up. It's waiting for your obedience to rise. And once it does, the shift begins. Not because of a feeling, but because you finally moved. You cannot run from what you were born to carry. You've tried. You've laid low. You've gone quiet when your voice was burning. You've played small in rooms that needed your presence. And yet, the call still finds you. It speaks when everything else is silent. It stirs even when you're tired. It burns, not just in moments of worship, but in the mundane, in the ordinary, in the middle of your scrolling, your driving, your waiting. That's how calling works. It never leaves you alone. God's voice doesn't compete. It doesn't scream over the noise. It waits until your resistance breaks down, until your distractions fall flat, until the false comfort of delay loses its grip. And then it whispers again, not in frustration, but in faithfulness. There is still more in you. You can pretend it's not there. You can rationalize it away. You can blame timing, capacity, circumstances. But the truth never stops echoing inside your soul. You were not created to coast. You were crafted to confront. You were formed in the dark for a reason, built under pressure for a purpose. And that purpose will not die just because you're tired of carrying it. There is no plan B for the oil on your life. There is no substitute for what's inside you. No one else can carry it the way you can. Others may carry similar mantles, but not this one. This one has your name on it. Your scars shaped it. Your tears seasoned it. Your silence baptized it. And that is why it won't release you. Because you are not replaceable. You are appointed. You weren't just called. You were calibrated, sharpened by the wilderness, refined in rejection, anchored through storms. And that journey wasn't punishment, it was precision. Every detour had direction. Every delay carried weight. Every moment of waiting was really God crafting capacity in you. The world sees the moment you step forward, but heaven sees the moments you almost did. The times you reached, then retreated. The times you were ready, then talked yourself out of it. And still, grace held the door. Still, God whispered, not too late. Still usable. Still mine. That's the kind of love you walk in, not conditional, but covenant. You've carried the weight of this purpose while wondering if you were disqualified. But the truth is, the weight never left because your calling never did. That heaviness you feel, it's not anxiety. It's not failure. It's destiny that refuses to die. You can numb it. You can distract yourself. But it always returns, not to torment, but to remind you, you are chosen. Not casually, not temporarily, but eternally. The assignments tied to your life are not optional. Not because God is forceful, but because He is precise. There are specific places, people, and timelines connected to your obedience. And when you resist, things don't just pause, they misalign. Destiny is a living, breathing structure. When you move in alignment, things unlock. When you stall, things wait. Because heaven refuses to release blueprints to hearts still entertaining confusion. You are no longer in the stage of wondering if you're called. That question has already been answered. The real question is, will you carry it fully? Will you embrace it all? Not just the glory, but the cost. Not just the spotlight, but the silence. Not just the open doors, but the closed ones. Because this is not about arrival, it's about assignment. And the assignment has already begun. It didn't wait for your perfection. It didn't wait for your ideal circumstances. It started the moment you survived what should have destroyed you. It began when you kept showing up without applause. When you kept praying when nothing moved. When you worshipped with empty hands and a full heart. Those weren't delays. Those were launch pads. You are further along than you think. The enemy has tried to convince you that you've missed your moment, that your time has passed. But those are lies forged in fear. The moment isn't missed, it's maturing, it's ripening. And you're not late, you're exactly on time. Not according to man's calendar, but heaven's. Heaven doesn't rush what it intends to root deeply. And you, chosen one, are being rooted for legacy. What you're building won't fade with trends. What you're birthing won't collapse with criticism. It will stand, because it's being birthed through obedience, not ambition, through conviction, not comparison, through alignment, not approval. You may not feel qualified. That's because this isn't about qualification, it's about commissioning. God doesn't use those who check all the boxes. He uses those who check in with Him. The ones who say, I don't have it all, but you have me. That's enough. That's always been enough. You are not who you used to be. Not because time passed, but because heaven worked on you in the hidden places. You've grown silently. You've transformed in stillness. You've matured through fire. And now, you're being called not to repeat old patterns, but to establish new ones. Not to revisit broken places, but to release healing in them. This is not the season to explain yourself. It's the season to express what's been deposited. You don't need validation to move. You don't need permission to obey. The oil on your life is not waiting for applause, it's waiting for action. It's time to stop managing the weight and start releasing what it was meant to carry. Let that truth anchor you now. You don't need to become someone else to fulfill your calling. You only need to become who you were before the world distracted you. The original version, the surrendered one, the one who said yes before fear taught you hesitation. You are not stuck, you are being summoned. Not to something vague, but to something specific. To rise, to release, to walk with authority. Not as someone still searching, but as someone who knows. This is who you've always been. You're not becoming, you're returning. And that return is holy. You've been feeling it in your spirit. The stir, the tremble, the urgency without an explanation. The kind of restlessness that doesn't come from fatigue but from spiritual discontent. You're not tired because of what you're doing. You're tired because of what you're resisting. The longer you delay your yes, the heavier it becomes. The weight of purpose isn't just in carrying it, it's in ignoring it. Chosen one, this tension is divine. This discomfort is not the enemy, it is invitation. God is not punishing you, He's pulling you. You're being drawn out of comfort, out of neutrality, out of silence. Because what rests on your life can no longer be quiet. You've tried to shrink, to blend, to hide behind logic, but heaven refuses to let you disappear. There is a prophetic pressure surrounding you, not to shame but to shape, not to break but to build. This is a sacred moment of activation, a moment that reveals the delay is over. The decision is now. This is not about hype, it's about holy urgency. You're not waiting on a sign. The signs have been screaming. The only thing left is your surrender. You've carried this long enough in silence. You've been pregnant with potential. You've dreamed, fasted, prayed, and asked for confirmation. This is it. You don't need more clarity. You need courage. Because where God is calling you now isn't safe, it's supernatural. And that means fear will try to linger. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's obedience in its presence. There's a place in you that knows. A deep place, past logic, past emotions, that recognizes this moment. It's the same place that whispered, "I'm not like the rest." It's the place that's been branded by heaven, the place that's been weeping, waiting, aching for alignment. That place is no longer asking for permission, it's demanding expression. You are a marked one, set apart, different. And that difference has cost you. It's cost you relationships, comfort, popularity. But it's also what qualifies you. You weren't overlooked. You were reserved. And now, the seal is breaking. The time of release is here. Hell's warfare against you wasn't about your past, it was about this moment. Because once you recognize the power you walk with, the enemy loses his leverage. Once you stop asking for agreement and start walking in assignment, strongholds start falling. That's why the attacks intensified before this moment. That's why the silence felt unbearable. It was a last attempt to break you before you stepped in. But you didn't break. You bent. You wept. But you're still standing. And now you rise. This isn't about being ready. It's about being willing. You've matured more than you know. Your spirit has grown while your mind was still questioning. You've been prepared in quiet places. And now the quiet is breaking because the voice in you can no longer be silenced. There are territories your voice must enter. Chains, your presence must shatter. Cycles, your obedience must break. The assignment isn't small because your purpose isn't optional. This world doesn't need more influencers, it needs intercessors. It doesn't need noise, it needs anointed voices who speak when heaven commands. Stop waiting for others to go first. You were called to be the first, the generational curse breaker, the pattern disruptor, the atmosphere shifter. That's why you never fit. That's why you couldn't settle. That's why your spirit kept groaning, even in rooms filled with laughter. You weren't made to blend. You were made to break through. You are not random. You are revealed. And what's being revealed now is weighty. But it's also ready. You were never expected to carry this alone. Heaven is backing you. The same power that raised Christ is alive in you. Not one part of your assignment was designed to be done without God. That's why He's waited for your full yes, not your partial participation, your complete surrender. This is the kind of moment that separates the crowd from the called. It's the kind of moment that heaven bookmarks, where your yes becomes louder than your excuses, where your obedience outweighs your overthinking, where your hunger becomes your direction. You've felt forgotten, but this moment proves you're foreknown. You've felt behind, but God is showing you you're aligned. And what you are about to walk into doesn't require more striving. It requires more surrender. So release the fear, release the comparison, release the need for control. All of that has served its purpose, but it cannot cross into what's next. What's next requires raw trust. The kind of trust that says, even if I don't understand it, He will still follow. Because this isn't about understanding, it's about alignment. Let the fire burn again. Let the oil flow freely. Let your spirit rise in power. You weren't built for silence. You were built to be a signal, a living signpost pointing others to God. And your movement activates miracles not just for you, but for every life attached to yours. Type, I choose obedience in the comments if this resonates. Not for attention, but as agreement, as activation. as a public mark of a private decision. Let it be known in heaven and recognized in hell. You will no longer delay. There is a sound rising from the earth, a frequency heaven recognizes. It's not the noise of crowds or the echo of applause. It's the sound of alignment, the quiet thunder of chosen ones awakening. And you, yes, you, are part of that sound. You are not on the sidelines. You are not waiting for your turn. This is your turn. You are not just being stirred, you are being summoned. This moment carries more than emotion. It carries the gravity of eternity. You've been positioned on purpose, in this exact time, for divine fulfillment. Not to observe, not to spectate, but to move with power and clarity. There's a shift occurring right now. And it's not just in the atmosphere, it's in you. The fire that once flickered is roaring back to life. The vision that once felt too big now feels necessary. You don't need permission anymore. You've crossed the line of wondering. You are not who you used to be. The fear that used to grip your throat doesn't have the same power. The lies that used to delay your movement now crumble in the face of divine truth. You've seen too much, survived too much, and now you are being launched. Heaven didn't invest this much in your story for you to play small. God didn't pull you from the pit just to have you sit in silence. Everything you've been through, every wilderness, every betrayal, every battle was building something, a foundation, a fire, a focus that is now impossible to fake. This is not about hype. This is about holy assignment, and you've been marked for it. You were not just saved, you were sent. And what you are stepping into now isn't a role, it's a realm of influence, of authority, of divine operation. This is the moment where your surrender becomes your strategy. You've always known it. Even when you couldn't articulate it, even when you tried to ignore it, you've always known there was more, that you weren't like the rest, that something about you was different. And now, that difference is being activated, not by force, but by fire. A fire inside you that refuses to be quenched. What's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you. But to step into it, you must let go of everything familiar that no longer fits. The conversations that drain, the patterns that distract, the excuses that comfort but never challenge. There's no more room for counterfeit peace. No more tolerating what heaven has already judged, unworthy of your next season. You are not entering a new phase, you're entering a divine function. The mantle that hovered over your life is now settling. The oil that has been dripping is now pouring. And this kind of pouring is not for personal elevation. It's for corporate transformation. You've been anointed, not for a stage, but for a generation. The cost has been high. And yes, the warfare has been relentless. But what you're about to carry will make sense of every season. The glory is about to justify the grind. The movement will explain the pain, and the fruit that comes from your next decision will speak louder than any explanation ever could. You are walking evidence that obedience is still the path, that holiness still has power, that God still uses the hidden, the broken, the surrendered. You're not here by chance. You're here because God decided your yes was too important to delay any longer. And if you feel the weight of this moment, if something in your spirit is leaping with every word, it means this message isn't just for you, it's about you. So take the step, make the shift. Move, not because you're confident, but because you're called. This is the kind of word you don't keep to yourself. There's someone in your life, scrolling right now, who's been on the edge, who's been praying for confirmation, who's been fighting to believe they haven't missed it. They need to hear this. They need to feel what you're feeling. So share this. Don't overthink it. Don't wonder if they'll understand. If God brought it to your mind, He already prepared their heart. Like this post, if something in your spirit has come alive, not for vanity, but as a moment of agreement, an altar of response, a mark in your timeline, a flag in the ground that says, I heard heaven and I said yes. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Not for content, but for continuity. Because what's starting today isn't a one-time word. It's the beginning of a wave. A movement of those who refuse to go back to normal. Those who are done hiding, shrinking, waiting. Those who are ready. This is where it begins. This is where your yes becomes a strategy. Where your obedience becomes a weapon. Where your surrender becomes history in the making. You are not late. You are right on time. And all of heaven is watching to see what you do next. There are moments in your life that seemed like accidents, times when things collapsed without warning. Relationships ended without explanation. Doors closed when you were certain they would open. You looked around for answers and found none. You wondered if you had misheard God, if perhaps you took a wrong turn. But now, on this side of awakening, the picture becomes clearer. Those weren't accidents. They were divine interventions disguised as heartbreak. You've spent seasons being misunderstood, not because you were broken, but because you were becoming. God was hiding you in plain sight, veiling your potential not to diminish it, but to protect it. Some couldn't see the real you, not because they were blind, but because heaven never allowed them access. When God places something holy on a life, He also places a hedge. Being misunderstood is part of the molding process. You learned not to rely on applause. You learned not to base your identity on attention. The silence taught you to search inward. The rejection forced you to anchor in the voice that never wavered, the voice of God. And in that secret place, you discovered what can't be taught, identity rooted in divinity, not in response. There were times you tried to explain yourself, to make others see, to break down the weight of your calling in language they could grasp, but all it did was exhaust you. Because not everyone is meant to understand. Some were only meant to observe, others to oppose. Few were called to walk with you, and fewer still were assigned to recognize you. But that's the way of the chosen. God removes the crowd so He can clarify the voice. He removes the noise so the purity of your purpose can be heard. Isolation has never been punishment. It has always been preparation. And though the silence was loud, it built something stronger than sound. It built substance. You learned how to pray when there was no answer, how to trust when the vision blurred, how to wait when nothing moved. And those lessons forged something unshakable in you, a depth that can't be faked, a conviction that doesn't flinch. That is what being misunderstood births, a resilience wrapped in reverence. People saw your exterior. They didn't see the late-night battles, the spiritual confrontations that left you drained but determined, the days you wanted to walk away but chose worship instead. And that's what makes you dangerous now, not because you've been seen, but because you've been seasoned. There is a mystery around the ones God hides, a covering that seems confusing until it lifts. And when it does, those who dismissed you are left wondering how they missed what was right in front of them. But vindication was never the goal. Visibility was never the prize. The real reward has always been alignment with God's timing. The pain of being misunderstood prepared you for the clarity of your current call. It taught you not to over-explain, not to perform, not to bend to fit in. You don't need to be decoded. You need to be deployed. And deployment only happens when identity is sealed in silence, not when it's shaped by validation. What you carry now doesn't need defense. It speaks for itself. The fruit of your life will answer every question. The peace on your path will silence every whisper. And the power in your presence will reveal what your words no longer have to. That's the authority that comes from being hidden by God. Your journey hasn't been linear. It hasn't been clean, but it's been consecrated. And in that consecration, heaven has forged a vessel that no longer fears being misunderstood, because the mission is now too clear, the assignment too urgent, the time too short. There's no more energy for explaining, only for executing. You've graduated from trying to be understood to simply being obedient, and that shift has unlocked something in the spirit. You're not waiting for others to agree. You're not building consensus. You're moving in covenant, the kind of covenant that overrides opinion, that silences confusion, that births movement. It's not arrogance, it's assurance. Not pride, but placement. You know where you stand now, and it's not on shaky ground. It's on the word, the whisper, the weight that never left. That's what makes your movement different now. It's not reactionary, it's revelatory. You're not guessing anymore. You know. And the ones who once misunderstood you, they were necessary. Their doubt sharpened your discernment. Their distance drew you deeper into God. Their rejection clarified your assignment. They did their part, even if they never knew it. And now, without bitterness, you release them. Because where you're going doesn't require approval, just anointing. Let the past remain a classroom, not a prison. You've learned what you needed. Now walk forward with your head lifted. You're no longer the same. The oil on your life speaks louder than any introduction, and the presence you carry is all the explanation needed. You've asked God to use you. You've whispered it through tears, declared it in worship, hoped for it in silence. But what you didn't expect was that the road to being used would look like loss, like silence, like isolation, like obscurity. Yet now, with clearer eyes and a steadier heart, you see it for what it was. God wasn't ignoring your prayer. He was answering it. He doesn't use what hasn't first been broken. He doesn't anoint what hasn't first been crushed. The oil doesn't flow from untouched olives. It comes from pressure, from the pressing. And you, chosen one, have been through the pressing, the unseen battles, the internal war between what is safe and what is sacred. And you kept going, you kept believing. That's why the oil is flowing now. But now comes the moment that matters most, not the anointing, but the obedience, not the power, but the positioning. Because what you've carried in the secret place now demands a response in the open. This is not just about potential. This is about movement, execution, obedience without delay. God is not asking for perfection. He's asking for surrender. He's not waiting on you to figure it all out. He's waiting on your yes. A yes that doesn't come from comfort, but from conviction. One that isn't shaped by how easy it will be, but by how necessary it is. You felt the tension inside you, the stretching, the pull towards something more. It's not imagination. It's not emotion. It's divine invitation. And the longer you ignore it, the heavier it gets. The more uncomfortable everything else becomes. Because once God marks you for movement, standing still becomes painful. You've heard him, that whisper that keeps returning, that nudge that won't go away, the dreams that won't stop, The phrases that repeat in your spirit even when you try to silence them. This is your confirmation. You're not imagining this. You're not making it up. You've been summoned. Obedience in this hour is not a suggestion. It's a strategy. You're not stepping into a preference, you're stepping into purpose. And that purpose requires clarity, purity, surrender. No more half yeses. No more stalling. No more circling back to what God already said to release. The reason this season feels like spiritual pressure is because heaven is waiting on your response. There's a window open, and while grace is abundant, timing is sacred. And when you delay what heaven wants to do now, you risk walking behind the cloud rather than under it. You are not late, but you are at a crossroads. And crossroads don't last forever. The instruction is here. The mantle is resting. The oil is ready. But the next move is yours. No angel can make it for you. No prophet can push you through. This is between you and God. This is where heaven leans in, not to watch you stumble, but to witness your yes. You know what he's asking for. It's not vague anymore. It's clear. That person to forgive. That step to take. That fear to confront. That thing to finally let go of. He's not asking to hurt you. He's asking to free you. To release the version of you that was always meant to emerge. And when you obey, things will break. Not only in your life, but in the lives connected to you. Obedience isn't just about you, it's about everyone assigned to your voice, your movement, your light. You've prayed for generational change. This is how it begins. One act of surrender. This is not about speed. It's about surrender. Not about being ready, but about being willing. You've carried this calling long enough. You've hidden the weight long enough. Now is the moment to release it, to walk boldly, to obey quickly, to step fully into what God has already confirmed. Let this moment be marked not by another delay, but by decision, a holy decision, a yes that makes darkness tremble, a surrender that heaven honors, a move that shakes atmospheres not because you're loud, but because you're aligned. Type 444 in the comments if you know this word is yours. If you feel the pull, if you recognize that this is not just another message, it's your moment. That number is not random. It represents divine order, angelic support, and spiritual foundation. When you type it, you're doing more than responding. You're agreeing with heaven. The heavens are recording this moment. Let it be known on earth, in spirit, and in your soul that you didn't just hear the call. You answered it. Time has never been the true measure of movement in your life. While others count progress in days, months, or years, your life has always unfolded on a higher rhythm. A rhythm that doesn't obey clocks or calendars. A rhythm that answers only to obedience. Because when you are chosen, your timeline is not man-made, it is divinely orchestrated. There's a temptation to watch the passing of time and equate it with delay. To assume that, because you haven't seen it yet, it must not be real. That because the breakthrough hasn't come, the promise must be void. But the truth is more profound. You've been moving on a spiritual clock, one that doesn't tick with seconds, but with surrender. The world told you to measure progress by visibility, by what you can post, by what people applaud. But heaven measures differently. It doesn't ask, how far have you gone? It asks, how deep have you obeyed? Because real elevation begins underground, in the roots, in the dark, and what's been happening in your life, though hidden, has been holy. There have been shifts in you that no one could see. decisions made in silence, prayers whispered in exhaustion, courage summoned in weakness. That is where heaven has been keeping score. And now, even though the calendar shows the same dates, the spiritual landscape has changed. You're not where you were, not even close. The transformation didn't need a ceremony. The anointing didn't need an audience. The release didn't wait for applause. You have been shifting dimensions, gently, powerfully, eternally. And that's why you felt disconnected from routine, misaligned with what used to satisfy. It's because your spirit is no longer anchored to time. It's anchored to truth. Truth doesn't operate on deadlines. It operates on readiness. And now, you are ready in a way you've never been before. Not because you have all the answers, but because you finally know the one who does. You've stopped trying to force the outcome. You've stopped begging for control. You've started to trust. That's what the last few months have really been about. A slow undoing of self-reliance. A gentle but forceful breaking of pride. A stripping away of performance. Until all that was left was the raw, vulnerable, willing version of you. The version God could actually use. Not the perfect you, but the surrendered one. You've come to understand something that few do. The moment you stop striving, you start syncing not with schedules, but with heaven's pulse. That pulse has been calling you, not just forward, but inward, deeper into the kind of trust that doesn't need proof. The kind of peace that doesn't need promises to be fulfilled before it rests. And now, here you stand, not with a map, but with a mandate, not with a step-by-step plan, but with a posture that says, whatever you say, I will do. That is what triggers movement in the spirit. Not dates, not days, but décision. The kind that override logic, the kind that confound the natural, the kind that heaven waits on before releasing the next phase. You've stopped asking, when will it happen? And started asking, how do I obey right now? That's the shift. That's the maturity. And that's the key to acceleration. Because in the kingdom, it's not time that moves things forward. It's obedience. God isn't late. He's exact. And what felt like delay was actually synchronization. A process of refining the vessel so that when the release came, it wouldn't destroy you, it would deliver others. You weren't waiting on the promise. The promise was waiting on you. The spiritual realm doesn't function like the natural one. It doesn't care about calendars. It cares about character. It waits not for birthdays or deadlines, but for hearts to say yes without negotiation. That kind of yes shifts timelines. That kind of yes collapses delay. Now, you're seeing it. Not just feeling, but discerning. That your life is not slow, it's strategic. That the pauses weren't passive, they were preparation. That what others called wasted time was actually heaven's investment in your foundation. So no, you are not behind. You're not running out of time. You are running in rhythm with God. And that rhythm has been accelerating in silence. It's why things feel different now. Why you're hearing clearer. Why you're dreaming deeper. Why the urgency won't leave. It's because the clock in heaven has moved, and you're right on schedule. Let go of the anxiety around time. Heaven's never been in a hurry, and yet it's never been offbeat. What was meant for you will not miss you. The enemy tried to use time to taunt you, tried to convince you that delay equals denial. But now you know better. Delay was development. Silence was strategy. And the waiting wasn't punishment, it was positioning. You've stepped out of the natural now. You've stepped into the dimension where God doesn't just speak, He moves through you, where time bends to purpose, where obedience rewrites outcomes, where destiny is no longer a distant hope, but a present reality. And you're ready, not because of what you've accomplished, but because of what you've surrendered. That's the mark of maturity. That's the sign of a chosen one who no longer waits for the world to affirm what God already confirmed, one who knows that their life is governed by something far greater than time. It's governed by truth, and truth never misses its moment. There is a tension around you now, one that cannot be dismissed or denied. It is the tension of observation, not by people, not by public opinion, but by unseen forces, angels and demons alike. The spiritual realm has its eyes on you, not because of what you've done, but because of what you're about to do. Your next move is more than a decision. It is a declaration in the spirit. You are being watched, studied, anticipated, not with casual curiosity, but with prophetic attention. The assignments attached to your obedience are not small. They carry ripple effects far beyond your sight. What you whisper in prayer sends shockwaves through atmospheres. What you break in silence creates freedom for those who haven't even met you yet. You are more visible in the spirit than you've ever been, not because you made yourself known, but because heaven has made your alignment known. Angels are stationed. Demons are disturbed. The spiritual realm recognizes what your natural environment has yet to perceive. You are a gatekeeper, a carrier of divine keys, a disruptor of ancient patterns. The warfare you've been experiencing is not simply attack, it is anticipation. The pressure has been evidence of proximity. Every spiritual resistance you've encountered was a last attempt to distract you before your next obedience-activated breakthrough. Not just for you, but for others, for bloodlines, for territory. Some battles you've faced weren't even about you. They were about what's coming through you. You've been fought because of what you carry, what you represent, what you interrupt just by existing. You've been the answer to prayers you never heard, the solution to problems you haven't seen. That's why the heat has increased. You are not on the battlefield, you are the battlefield. Every decision you make in this hour echoes beyond your life. It either affirms heaven's strategy or opens the door to further delay. That's why discernment is rising in you. That's why you can no longer tolerate the things you once ignored. Because the stakes are higher now. The awareness has shifted. You can feel it. You're not just living, you are leading without knowing who's watching. And you are being watched, not to condemn you, but because your life is a turning point. In your obedience, angels are activated, assignments are released, miracles are dispatched. This isn't religion. This is reality. The invisible realm is not a concept, it's a current. And right now, your life is a voltage line. Heaven's current is running through your willingness. When you speak, it's not just sound, it's frequency. It carries weight, movement, disruption. That's why certain atmospheres resist you. Why people sometimes shift when you enter a room. You weren't made to blend. You were made to confront what's been allowed to linger too long. The demons that have studied you aren't confused, they're afraid. Not because you've been perfect, but because you haven't quit. You're still here, still saying yes, still walking when you should have collapsed, still trusting when everything around you tried to mock your faith. And that endurance is evidence of something unshakable. Angels record more than words. They record movement, sacrifice, hidden acts of faith. And your life has become a book of obedience, a scroll filled with unseen victories. While others looked for titles and trophies, You were building in the Spirit, laying down what you couldn't explain, giving up what you wanted to keep, all for the sake of what you could feel was holy. This is the season when all of that begins to make sense. The silence you've endured, the loneliness that felt unbearable, the prayers that seemed unanswered, it was never abandonment. It was strategic surveillance. Heaven was watching, waiting for the moment you stopped seeking escape and started walking in agreement. You are not just on earth to survive. You are here to shift things. You are not just a believer, you are a builder, a breaker, a burden carrier for heaven's agenda. And the ones who watch you, both angelic and demonic. I know this. Your next step can unlock destiny or delay it. But heaven believes you'll choose wisely. That belief is not based on your performance. It's based on your pattern, a pattern of obedience, even when it hurt, a pattern of rising, even when broken, a pattern of listening, even when the noise was louder than the whisper. That's why you've been trusted with this moment. And now, every eye is on you, not in pressure, but in power, because your life is not passive. It is prophetic. You walk like someone sent. You speak like someone filled. You carry fire without even realizing how many altars it will ignite. So walk, knowing this. Your steps are sacred. Your breath carries breakthrough. Your existence is divine interruption. You are not unnoticed. You are not ignored. You are watched by heaven. And your obedience is about to speak louder than anything you've ever said. You were never made to blend in. You were never designed to disappear in the background. That aching you felt, that divine discomfort, that inner knowing that you are not like the rest, it was all true. You are a crown bearer, handpicked by God, called out from the crowd to carry something eternal. And now, the time has come to choose. You cannot carry both a calling and compromise. One will crush the other. You cannot walk in destiny while dragging doubt. The crown over your life demands full surrender. The glory waiting to rest on you cannot land on half-built altars. This is the hour of decision, not in emotion, but in eternity. The crown has always hovered. You've felt it. That weight that wouldn't lift, that pressure to rise when others sat comfortably, that voice that whispered, "There is more," and it's in you. But a hovering crown is not a worn crown. Heaven is waiting to place it, and only your obedience can receive it. You've been entrusted with something sacred, not because you earned it, but because you endured, because when the battle came, you stayed. When the storm hit, you worshipped. When the silence lingered, you listened. And heaven marked you not for potential, but for purpose. Now comes the part few talk about, the part where destiny becomes demand, the part where you no longer get to wonder who you are, the part where you must choose to carry what you were called to. And that choice will not be made for you. God has done his part. The crown is extended, but he will not place it on a bowed head, unwilling to rise. Do not be deceived. This choice is not just personal. It is prophetic. The moment you step into alignment, things will shift around you. Cycles will break. Patterns will collapse. Your yes carries authority that reaches beyond your life. That's why the resistance has been so strong. Hell fights what it fears, and it fears your yes. But the choice is still yours. Heaven does not manipulate. It invites. And this invitation will not stay open forever. Not because God is cruel, but because calling is timed. There are seasons when the window opens wide and others when the cloud moves on. You are in a divine window, a holy intersection. This is not about what you feel qualified for. It's about what God has already qualified you for. You've walked through fire. You've survived silence. You've stood in the shadows and watched others get promoted while you got purified. But what you gained in those hidden seasons was never meant to be wasted. It was preparation for the crown. And when the crown lands, it changes everything. You don't walk the same. You don't speak the same. You don't choose the same. Because now, your life is no longer your own. You become a representative of heaven, an ambassador of the unseen, a carrier of glory. And with that comes power, but also responsibility. The responsibility to walk in integrity when no one is watching, to steward influence with humility, to carry truth with tenderness and fire. You don't get to blend in once the crown lands. You lead. You intercede. You protect the altar you carry. Because now, people will follow what you do more than what you say. Don't shrink from this. You were built for it. Every breakdown became a brick. Every loss became a lesson. Every tear watered the soil where your next is now blooming. You may not have felt ready, but crowns don't rest on the ready. They rest on the willing. So here you are, chosen one. Heaven waits. The crown hovers. The moment lingers, not with pressure, but with prophecy. You are standing in the kind of decision that alters history, the kind that awakens angels, the kind that silences hell, and your next step will confirm what your spirit already knows. I was born for this. If this word has struck something in your soul, like this post, let it mark a moment. Let it become a spiritual timestamp in your journey. Share this message with someone else carrying a crown they've been afraid to wear. Someone else on the verge of stepping into everything they were called to be. Don't keep this to yourself. What you release might be the confirmation they've been praying for. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because this isn't just a message. It's a movement, and the chosen ones are rising. You've just stepped into your part. You've been told your time would come, that one day it would all make sense, that your waiting would be rewarded, your hidden tears would have a purpose, your silence would bear fruit. But nobody told you when. Nobody told you how to recognize that day. Until now, because this, chosen one, this is the appointed time. And May 31 is not just another day. It is the spiritual pivot point you've been prepared for your entire life. It's not just a date. It's a divine marker. An intersection between your past and your potential. A spiritual hinge in heaven's calendar. The moment where all of heaven watches to see. Will you rise? Will you obey? Will you step fully into everything that's been building in the silence? Everything you've faced before this has led to this window. The warfare, the waiting, the spiritual whispers that kept coming even when you tried to tune them out. That unrest in your spirit that wouldn't let you settle. That quiet urge to prepare without knowing what you were preparing for. It was always pointing to this moment, May 31. This day was not chosen randomly. It's been circled in the unseen for years, waiting for you to become who you are right now. You're not stumbling into destiny. You're arriving on time, and not 1 second late. Even the delays were part of the divine sequence. Even the detours had purpose. The enemy wanted you to believe you were off track, that you missed it, that you would always be catching up to a promise that never landed. But he was wrong, because heaven's calendar doesn't operate on the world's clock, and May 31 proves it. There's a rhythm to the spirit that can't be manipulated. It doesn't yield to impatience. It doesn't speed up because you beg. It moves when obedience aligns with readiness. And now, that alignment has arrived. The fire you feel, that's not hype. That's divine synchronization. You are where you are supposed to be. Everything feels different now. The air, the atmosphere, your inner world. It's like something sacred has descended, and nothing tastes the same. That's not emotional fluctuation. That's heavenly positioning. The weight you feel in your chest isn't anxiety, it's anointing. It's what happens when your calling moves from idea to reality. You're not hoping anymore. You're holding, not just promises but presence. Not just potential but power. That's why old habits are breaking off. Why you can no longer fake what doesn't resonate. Why you can't force yourself to care about conversations that used to occupy your time. Because you're in transition. And May 31 is the threshold. You're not returning to anything. You're not reviving old cycles. You're crossing over into something entirely new. Something weightier. Something established in heaven before you ever breathed your first breath. And now, your spirit remembers it. Even if your mind is catching up, you've asked God to speak. He is. You've asked Him to move. He has. You've asked for signs, clarity, alignment. It's all here compressed into this moment. May 31 is not the end. It's the activation, the catalyst, the convergence of preparation and obedience, of calling and timing, of identity and instruction. Don't try to make this normal. Don't reduce this moment to something casual. This isn't an encouraging word. It's a commissioning. This isn't inspiration. It's a summons. You are not receiving a blessing. You're receiving a burden. And it's glorious. The burden to lead with integrity, to carry fire into dark spaces, to stop tiptoeing and start tearing down. You are not being invited to stand still. You are being commanded to move. Because what you're stepping into now is not just for you, it's for generations. You may feel like you're standing still in the natural, but in the spirit, you've crossed dimensions. You're not in the same place you were at the start of this month. You're not the same person you were even yesterday. Something has shifted, and May 31 sealed it. There is no turning back. Not because you aren't allowed, but because you won't want to. Once you taste clarity, confusion becomes repulsive. Once you walk in authority, hesitation loses its grip. Once you see how God truly moves, you won't settle for emotional highs. You'll pursue holy presence. This moment is your answer. That holy unrest in your spirit. This is why the things that stopped working. This is why the doors that didn't open. This is why May 31 was never just about breakthrough. It's about becoming the vessel, becoming the voice, becoming the evidence. The world isn't just watching, it's waiting for someone who will carry the weight, for someone who will obey at all costs, for someone who won't explain away the fire burning in their bones. You've been assigned, not because of your gift, but because of your yes. And now, it's time to move like you've said it. Heaven marked this day long ago, and it marked you for it. You could have been born at any time, but you were placed in this era, called into this window, not to admire the shift, but to be the shift. And from this moment forward, you'll never be the same. This is the shift point, not a suggestion, not a metaphor, a literal, spiritual, irreversible moment in your story. You will look back on everything before May 31 and see it differently, not because your past changed, but because your perspective did. Everything before was preparation. Everything after becomes purpose. You've crossed the line that most never reach. The internal transformation that happens when obedience becomes instinct. You are no longer wrestling with whether or not you are called. You are no longer measuring your worth against what others see. There is a stillness now, a knowing, not rooted in pride, but in presence, not in appearance, but in assignment. The journey wasn't easy, but it was exact. Every delay, every detour, every rejection sculpted something in you that talent could never create. You are not the sum of your successes. You are the product of your survival. And now, the oil flows not because you shouted, but because you stayed. This is what it looks like when someone becomes unshakable. You have stared down everything designed to break you. The spiritual pressure, the emotional toll, the unanswered seasons that made no sense. None of it was wasted. You are now standing in what used to be a prayer. And you didn't arrive here by accident. You were summoned. That's what May 31 represents in heaven's record. The day the veil tore between your former life and your divine momentum. The moment when confusion ended and clarity took its place. You don't have all the answers. You won't need them. Because what you carry now is not a plan, it's a presence. A weight of glory that cannot be explained, only expressed. People will ask, what happened to you? Some will admire, others will resist. You won't have to prove anything. The fruit will speak. The shift will be visible. The weight on your words will confirm what heaven has already declared. This one belongs to me. This new season won't require striving. It will require stillness, not passivity. But the kind of inner anchoring that knows. When God sends you, you don't need to beg for space. You become the space. You walk into places and shift the temperature without trying. You speak, and people listen. Not because you're loud, but because you're aligned. You're not stepping into visibility for recognition. You're stepping into visibility for responsibility. You've been prepared to handle it. You've been humbled enough not to mishandle it. The crown is not heavy anymore, it fits now. Because you've been refined into someone who can carry it. That's what fire does. It burns away the false self, the one that needed validation, the one that feared judgment, the one that constantly questioned if it was enough. All that's gone now. What's left is pure, focused, faithful, true. Your obedience has opened something in the spirit. You won't always see the results immediately, but they're unfolding, quietly and completely. Relationships aligning, doors forming, revelation increasing. All because one person you finally decided to obey without conditions. May 31 wasn't just a turning point for your journey. It was a turning point for everything connected to you. Because when one person aligns, heaven begins to rearrange things in the natural. That's the spiritual domino effect. Generational patterns break. Territory opens. Heaven's will accelerates through willing vessels. You are unshakable now. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. Not because everything is perfect, but because you know who walks with you. The doubts have quieted. The distractions have faded. What remains is fire, conviction, alignment, purpose. You're not going back to smallness, not returning to pretending, not dimming your light for comfort. You are stepping forward in the full awareness of who you are, God's chosen one, called for this generation, assigned for this era, prepared in pain, anointed in silence, released in power. Everything changes from here, not instantly, but irreversibly, because your yes shifted something in the unseen. Your surrender summoned heaven, and your obedience just wrote a new chapter for everyone connected to you. If this entire message has confirmed what your spirit already knew, comment 777 right now. That number is prophetic. It means divine alignment, holy completion, and confirmation that you are in sync with heaven's timing. Like this post, if the fire inside you has reignited, if clarity has replaced confusion, if you know this wasn't just a word, it was your word, share this message with someone you know is on the edge. Someone marked, someone chosen, someone who's been wrestling in the quiet. Let this be their signal. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because the chosen ones are rising, and this is just the beginning. May 31 will be the day you never forget. The day it all shifted. The day the crown stopped hovering and finally landed